right, this is team A-4. My name is Ryan Parsons.
My name is Drew Schiffler.
My name is Jason Waskowitz.
I'm Todd Tasowski.
And this is Dan Turner.
So our class has been meeting with a bunch of CEOs recently, and we know CEOs are the driving force behind today's businesses, steering companies through challenges and opportunities alike. These decisions shape organizations and impact stakeholders at every level. One of the common themes that our group realized was the value of perseverance. On this note, we will begin talking about our first CEO, Michelle.
Yeah, so like you said, our first CEO was Michelle McGough, the founder and CEO of Solutions for Networks. A big thing of hers is grow or die, which means 80% of small businesses failed in the first 5 years. I'm going to pass it over to Todd, who has more.
Yeah, so I think that's a great key point she was talking about. But I think one of the things that she said you have to be careful of is the growth trap, because growing does mean you have the economy of scale effect. However, if you grow too fast, the business can't keep up, specifically when you're trying to cut costs as well. She also mentioned a lot about how she treats her employees. She's a pretty small team, but she has a lot of her employees stay with her long term, which means they get a lot of good training in and they become more efficient. So I think that actually goes into her competitive strategy, treat your employees right so they stay and create more of an advantage for you. It also creates social complexity because how she treats her employees is a lot different than how other companies would treat her employees. But there is a downside to this, and Drew's going to tell you more about that right now.
Yep. So she expanded on this a little bit by talking about a personal experience. Basically, she was saying that you have to be careful of hiring people who are close to you, like whether that be family, friends, friends of friends, or whoever else. And the personal experience she shared was she hired someone that was a daughter or son of a friend of hers, who then she ended up having to fire. And this caused strife in that relationship between them. And I'm almost certain she said that they do not talk anymore at all. So it's just important to be careful about who you hire and who you invite into your business.
Yeah, really important to find a good fit for your company, which one of the buzzwords we were talking about was guanxi, which means build relationships with people you trust. So it's definitely a big key that you have to know who you're trying to bring in and if they can provide a lot of value for your company.
Yeah.
And then another lesson that she brought up is a bad thing about AI. It makes all data is biased. So you can't trust it completely, but you still obviously have to take it into consideration.
Last thing I want to bring up about Michelle is a fellow classmate asked about patents. And a patent is a legal barrier to entry along with like trademark and copyrights, but it creates perfect imitability because now competition can't copy you and do the exact same thing that company is doing. So that could help create a more sustained competitive advantage.
Yeah, I have another thing to add. She had a phrase that I stuck with me. It's hire slow, fire fast, and this ties in back in with the other lesson we learned about being careful to hire friends. But yeah, that was just something that stuck with me.
The next speaker we're going to be talking about is Jim Baloris, and he is a vice president at PNC Bank.
And this was a successful example of mergers and acquisitions between Pittsburgh National Corporation and Provident National Corporation. Each served two diverse markets, so the merger made them become the largest bank in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and that actually reminds me of a quote that we heard in class by Jack Welch, the former CEO of General Electric. He says the hardest thing in business is making sure that companies fit well when they're going through an M&A. And obviously, these two big corporations had a great fit because PNC Bank is obviously a very strong, big bank in PA that's thriving.
And Jim's 33 years tenure with the company speaks to the company's value on talent and retention of that talent.
All right. Another thing I have to say about PNC Bank is that he mentioned their competitive advantage, which is pretty interesting. A few things he said is that they're all over the U.S., they're online and in person, they're very consistent, and they don't take a lot of risks. Dan, do you want to talk about the Venmo thing?
Yeah, he was also talking about how emerging technologies such as Venmo, they've had to pivot and react to those. They have a strategic alliance with Zelle. And they prefer that service compared to Venmo because Venmo is off their radar. They can't really see those transactions. And when some of their clients transfer a bunch of money into the bank from Venmo, they can raise like tax concerns and stuff that the government doesn't know or wants to know about and might not be able to. Another interesting thing about Jim, he was an industrial management degree and he described himself as a jack of all trades, mastery of nothing. And this resonated with me because I feel that's kind of how the CNT major is too in a way. Like we've obviously taken all the lower level business courses and become well rounded, but haven't really become a master of any one particular part of business.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. The next person we're going to be talking about is Stock Mo, who graduated with a degree in management, and he passed a really difficult finance exam. So Stock Mo started a YouTube channel targeting a specific market segment that needed help with investments, and this was a form of a first mover industry. He was the first one to do this and get that started.
Yeah, so I actually wrote down something in my notes that was pretty inspiring about what he said. It's a quote from Stockmo himself. He said, "The world is yours. You're the only person who's going to stop you. There are a million things that can hinder you, but not stop you. Keep working and don't stop." And although hinder's not really a buzzword, that kind of really stuck out to me because it is true. There are a lot of things that can hinder you, but if you keep working hard, then you'll be good.
Yeah, I feel like he was a really good example of knowing exactly what you want and you keep chasing that dream no matter what obstacles come in your way. Like he started this as a little side gig and now it's his main priority. So it's a really good example of never giving up.
Mm-hmm. And at this stage in his business, I remember him saying his goal now is to help other people reach financial freedom. And I think he's well on his way to doing that with his channel.
Yeah, it looks like he's done really good on YouTube. He showed his revenue and it was very high. So that was actually pretty cool to see.
I also enjoyed the 401k calculator that he showed us about how to smartly invest your money. I felt like that was a really good tool to use as well.
Yeah. It showed how starting early is important.
Yep.
And like Ryan said, and how he started these investment videos side gig, and now it's his full time and what he's focused on. Just goes to show that like you don't know what can happen, so you might as well just start now and see what.
Yeah, Stockmo is definitely one of our favorites. We're very inspired by him.
And Stockmo's business progressed from a sole proprietorship to an LLC to now an S corp. And one investment tip that I have written down, he said put 5% of your investments in crypto with a 50-50 mix of Bitcoin and Ethereum. And although these investments are somewhat volatile, they have gone up substantially over time, even in the last few months.
Yeah. The next CEO we will be talking about is Gene Lazarovich, who came from Moscow, Russia in 1991.
So Gene's company that I talked about was JetStore. So JetStore designs, manufactures, and markets high performance, competitively priced data storage.
The thing I really liked about Gene's story is you talk a lot about how he strategically leverages technological advancements to create a competitive advantage in the market. And I think that's really cool. He's like kind of on the cutting edge of like the new technology that's come out, and he's trying to figure out how he can integrate what is coming out before kind of any other companies can get their hands on it. And it kind of makes him kind of stand out in the industry.
Yeah, he has been very innovative with his way of going about things. He founded JetStore almost 30 years ago, and he came in from Moscow with pretty much nothing. So that says a lot about him as like a self-motivated, self-made guy.
Yeah, that links to something else we talked about in class. Just being ahead of the curve and getting ahead of the rest of your competitors. Because if you get into a small industry or segment before anybody else does, that can really help you out.
And to kind of link Gene's story back to a lot of the other CEOs that we had speak in class, he also says scaling is like really difficult, but the key to actually being able to scale is just by being bold and create disruption. Instead, try to just become a first mover and create a sustained competitive advantage as early on as possible, because that's going to really carry on throughout the entire life of the business.
Yeah, and he was talking about how being bold can help you create connections, such as his connection that got him a contract with the Department of State, which was $2 to $3 million over 5 years. And that's a good strategic alliance for his company, one of his biggest contracts.
And another lesson that he kind of passed on to us, basically he was talking about how it can be smart to lease items instead of buying them. And this kind of reduces your amount of risk. As CN majors, as potential and future entrepreneurs, Tips like this are really important for us to learn. Um, s- Being able to lease and not buy, that could save us money in the long run if we ever were to start our own venture. So I thought it was really interesting of him to share that specific lesson with us. And then as well, this kind of connects to Stockmo too, but like Dan said, he came to the US with almost nothing. And then he was able to turn JetStore into what it is today. And basically that just goes to show that if you dream big, and if you put something to put your mind to something, that you can do it. And he's definitely an example of that. And he made sure that we knew that as well, that if we put our mind to something, that we can get it done.
Yeah, and his company is actually, what he was saying was they're benefiting from emerging technologies such as AI, because AI generates large data, and his company does the storage of that data. So that's pretty cool.
All right, the next CEO we will be talking about is Justin, who is the founder of Today Sports, who is also a student in the same class as us.
Yeah, so I actually really enjoyed that talk that he had to our class, and I thought it was cool how he's our age. He's actually a year younger than us, so that's pretty inspiring how far he's came in the past few years. A big tip that he gave us was about LinkedIn. You use LinkedIn to build real friendships, and he also said that being active on LinkedIn can go a long way, because if you post multiple times a day or a week, people see that and they know that you're doing good things. And also, he said that you should connect with everyone on LinkedIn because you never know what connections you can make on there.
Yeah, he was also talking about reaching out to people. Kind of goes along with what Gene was talking about, like being bold. He said you'd be surprised, like people with high up positions respond to you if you give them like genuine messages. Um, so yeah, that's definitely utilizing LinkedIn as a tool to create connections. And also, he's talking about leveraging Penn State and the Launchbox, utilizing those resources in the Penn State community.
Not only does he leverage Penn State, but he also leverages his following today on Today Sports, and his own personal following as well to gain opportunities. I actually have personal experience with this right now. I'm an operations manager at Handle Delivery, which is a delivery service here run at Penn State. And we're partnering with Yerba, which is a drink company. And Justin is actually in charge of all of their promotional stuff um, at Penn State. And he was able to leverage his Today Sports following and social media following, as well as his experiences doing content creation, to then have a partnership with Yerba. So that's just really cool to see and be a part of as well. Something that we're talking about in class, I'm now taking into my own personal experiences, and that involves Justin as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I took away from Justin's talk is he kind of has a cost advantage because he started it while he was in college with other college students. So he kind of has this big advantage over anybody else trying to like get into the industry because he's able to take less of like a pay out of his company, and his employees and his like co-founders require less money because they don't have as many living expenses as like if he was paying somebody with a house and a family. So I actually think that was a really cool thing to pick up on, his cost advantage, just by the timing that he had starting it.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting how he leveraged his connections. Like, for example, with Gatorade, although he didn't do much for them, he still shows that to other companies, and it looks very good in his resume. So that's a big thing that Justin told us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that was
was
a good.
just going to expand upon that really quickly. I think it's really good and a very smart idea on how he established those connections because, like he was saying, when you reach out to those bigger companies, like he didn't necessarily take much from them other than like a good reputation. Like if other smaller companies see that, oh, you're working with Gatorade, oh, you have a partnership with Lululemon, they're more likely to partner up with you as well because they see you have those good high up connections.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he actually worked for Gatorade for free just so he could like add that to his like list of companies that he had partnered with to build more trust with new customers. Um, and then one thing he was talking about as that one of his difficulties that could be seen as straddling was that he was just involved in like too many things at once at one point. And it just became like a headache in a way.
Yeah, and I remember him saying how a solution he has to that is he uses Google Calendar, and every month he schedules everything out. So like when he's gonna work, when he's gonna do his homework, like everything is a very disciplined schedule. He said he wakes up at the same time every day, It's the same thing every day, and I thought that was very interesting, and I'm definitely going to try to do that. Make a schedule every month and like really plan everything out because that's how you be productive.
And
Yeah, definitely. And I also I want to go back to something that Dan said earlier, a couple of seconds ago. He was like always scanning for new opportunities, and I think that partnership with like Lululemon and Gatorade, like these big companies that like everybody knows about, is a huge part of his strategy. Just because working with them, and taking no money from them, just to be able to put their logo up on his website, like creates a lot more traction for and creates more opportunities in the future. And it's obvious, like when I was listening to Justin, he's always searching for synergy across different industries. His mind's always open to new opportunities, and he's always looking for ways that he could fit today's sports into other people's companies and work with them to try to make new opportunities.
And I guess I'll just end it off with one thing I remember was the advice he gave us that if you don't quit, it's impossible to fail, which seems like a common trend among these entrepreneurs who spoke in class. So we all thought these entrepreneurs were very inspiring, and we learned a lot from them.
yeah, they enable us to like look into our own future a little bit and see the potential that we have, and that it's possible for us to create our own ventures, be an entrepreneur, and be successful doing them.
Right. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to meet and ask our personal questions to these CEOs and vice presidents. We don't get the chance to do that often, so we really appreciate any time that we have meeting with people who have been through what we've been through, and sharing experiences and getting advice from people like these CEOs.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is Team A-4 signing off.